Welcome to part 2 of the making a 4 Mile clay pot. Here I am removing the pot from the drying room. It has that foil on there to keep it moist, but also I don't need a light in there because it's very reflective and it reflects any light that's in the room. So, taking out a few at a time, and now I'm going to pull a handle. So this is how I make all my handles. And I just slowly pull out the clay from a longer, thicker ball. And this clay, the 4 Mile, it likes to fall apart a little bit on me, so we'll be doing it a little bit slower here on this one. So I start by trying to make it as round as possible, and then I start flattening it on 2 sides, and then I flip it so that it stays nice and even. So if you see it's flipping in my left hand as my right hand continues that motion, making it long enough, and then once it's finally long enough, I finish, make sure it's nice and smooth. The cat's checking the work, he approves. Pinch it off, put it into a handle shape, and we'll make a couple more in fast motion here. All right, now we're attaching. And this is how I attach those handles. So I get a little bit of mud, or also known as slip. I put it on the now slightly drier mug. It's been about 4 or 5 hours, and now we're attaching that handle that we just pulled. I attach it at the top first, and then I line up the bottom, attaching it, smoothing out all around where it connects. And the smoother that is, the better it feels in your hand, but also the better attached it's going to be. Oh, and this cat approves as well. Nice and smooth. This is what they call craftsmanship, is when you make sure that all the joints are nicely joined, and when they do break, they don't even break where you join them up. They'll break somewhere else because this joint is so strong. I then turn it sideways so I can look, make sure that the curve is proper, that I feel it's going to feel good in the hand, and smooth out any other little barbs. This 4 Mile clay has a bunch of little chunks and stuff that needs to be smoothed out, especially on the handles, because you don't want to be handling little sharp bits of stuff. So that's what I'm doing there, and making sure it's nice and round. So now you can see it's got a nice profile. I make sure it's nice and square to the pot, and that's what I'm doing there. And now we have a mug with a handle. Making sure that it's nice and round with the cottage cheese container, which it is. And now we can cut it off the bat. So it's a little rough on the bottom, and so we'll need to trim it to make sure that it's nice and smooth on the surface that you put it down on. So we're going to take all these off the bats. That's the little piece of wood that it's sitting on. And I use this tool that I made. It's a fishing line, which is being held by 2 sticks. Very simple little tool, but it does a great job at kind of wiring them off of the pieces of wood that they're on. So we're going to do that with all these. Sometimes there's a little chunk I gotta take off if it doesn't smoothly cut it all. If you notice, these mugs look super big, but that's because by the time they shrink, they will be medium size at best. They shrink 18%, so it makes it so you have to make a very large mug in order to end up with a small one. So now I'm trimming it on the Giffen grip. So this device centers it for me. It holds the mug in place, and all I have to do is then hit it with my trimming tool. I use the mud tool because it's fast, and I've really love the way it cuts through the clay quickly. So I first do the edge, make sure that bottom is nicely rounded, and I cut off all the excess. This also makes it circular for the next step, which is going to be trimming the inside. So I first trim out the outside, round it off for looks and to get rid of some of that extra weight. I then turn the tool the other way, and I make sure that the bottom is flat, so that means that the top and the bottom are going to be running with each other. One side is going to sit higher than the other side of the mug. And then I trim out the middle. So this makes it so it doesn't wobble. You can even put the mug on like an uneven surface and it'll sit flat because I'm trimming out the middle of it. Evens out the clay, makes it, and it gives me a place that I can put my signature so it doesn't like scratch up your table where I've signed my name. I then turn the tool over and I burnish the bottom with the back side of the trimming tool. So that's what I'm doing there, making it nice and smooth so it can sit on your nice wood countertop and not scratch it. And take my tool, and on all the 4 Mile Clay stuff, I write 4 Mile Clay first, and then I sign my name. There it is. 4 Mile Clay. Oh, and I date it, 22. So here's it in fast motion, just so you can see what the pot's doing. All right, now we are probably a week or two later, and these pots have dried in my drying cabinets. And I'm grabbing them, and we are going to take those signatures and where we wrote the 4 Mile Clay, and we're going to scrape that off here using this putty knife. Nice and smooth. And it's time to put them in the kiln. Join the rest of these awesome pots in the kiln, and I want you to pay close attention to that round one right there and the way that it's situated around the handles. Anyway, that will play in here in just a second. We're going to close it, and we let it slowly heat up on a very slow bisque schedule. So now it's complete, it's cooled down, we're gonna open it up, and oh no, that ball has exploded and it's destroyed all the handles of all the pots around it. Luckily, the 4 Mile Clay stuff is just fine being in the other side of the kiln, but yeah, it was a lot of destruction, a lot of cleanup afterwards. Apparently I didn't have it dried up enough. That round one had a very fat foot. Anyway, these ones looked great. So there are a couple of the 4 Mile Clay mugs. We're now going to glaze them. So I'm mixing up the clay, or the glaze. I'm mixing it with this toilet brush cleaner. Works fantastically. And taking the mug and dipping it in the sea mist glaze. So now that it's been bisqued, fired once, it can take that glaze on. It'll soak it in, but it won't like disintegrate in the water like it would have before. So I go ahead and wipe off all the extra off the bottom so it doesn't run off. It still ran off, but we're working on that. We'll grind it off and it looks fine. Anyway, there it is, nicely smooth and clean. And we're gonna put that back in the kiln now with all these other glazed pots. And we're gonna fire it once again. This time it's going up to cone 5, which is 2185, and it sits there for an hour. And then cool it down to 1750 really fast, and it sits there another hour. This is like the iron red schedule. Anyway, it makes the 4-mile clay look super red and cool, and it makes all the glaze super drippy and fun on there. So there it is, the finished product, 4-mile clay with the glaze straight out the kiln. Beautiful, and you saw it here.